Back at it again, my boys. Talking ball with my boy Big L Train in the building. College football is a crazy game, man.
Dude, it is nuts.
It's a crazy game. A lot
Every time
to
you think you got your finger on it, you really don't.
yeah. There's a lot to unpack from just coaching
A lot.
carousel to uh, a lot of good games last weekend.
Yes.
Several ranked games this weekend.
Yes.
A lot's going to be determined, and as we basically hit the midway point, we're basically halfway through the season, which is that's the whole other thing that's wild. Is we always
Mm-hmm.
start talking about it in the summertime, and then the season jumps on you, and then we're halfway through this thing. Um, it just goes quick, so you got to enjoy it, and hopefully your team is competitive. My team's good, just like your team. We're in the
Oh
top.
God, here we go. Here we go.
I
Abandoned
hear,
ship.
I hear the
Abandoned
Gators.
ship.
I hear the Gators are looking to fire Napier this weekend. So
Yes, sir.
that's
So that's the
tough.
rumor on the street.
That's tough for those Gator fans out there, man. No. Yeah, no, we'll hop into all that stuff. But I guess we'll just jump into last week's games. Obviously, the Canes were on a bye week, so the Noles. We'll start with them since they were the early game. Mike Norvell and the boys caught another L, man. They are 0-3 in the ACC and Loserville. Welcome to Loserville, Tallahassee.
Well, part of the problem was they were out. A couple guys were missing this week. You had Pittman. Pittman was out. Cam Davis was out. Michael Pettis was out. Squirrel White, and then you lose Deuce Robinson during the game. But the telling thing for me to start the game was that 15-play drive Pitt had to open the game. Cade was dialing it up, and Narduzzi was just like, we're going for it on fourth down. And they had like 3 fourth downs on that opening drive. And you're expecting a freshman to be a little rattled going into Tallahassee. And the kid, for the most part, outside of his two picks, and he had a fumble that they recovered, looked pretty good. I mean,
Mason
Des
Heinz
Reed
played pretty good, man.
yeah, really, really good. And then you had Des Reed taking more of a receiving role out of the backfield, and he, had over 130 yards receiving. I I don't know what's going on with the Noles, man. I think their defense is not as good as we thought it was after watching week 1 against Bama. You know what it is? I think they just got up for Alabama and they focused in on that game, and then they forgot that they still had the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, part of that too, it goes to where you have the 2 layup games right after it. So they built up a lot of false equity, in my opinion, to where, obviously their fans were talking cash, like, yeah, look at us. They get vaulted in the top 10,
Yeah, they're number 8.
Yeah, so
number 8.
You beat Bama, hell of a win. You can't take that away from them. Like, again, that is a great win. They played really, really well that day. Bama didn't play that well. I mean, if these 2 teams were playing this Saturday, Bama would be a 2-touchdown favorite again, just like they were the previous time. And I think the results would be different, but it is what it is. That was week 1. You took them, but the defense, like you say, Heinzel and those guys did whatever they wanted, man.
Whatever they wanted.
It was like they just, and it was kind of like carryover. Thinking back to Miami kind of did what they wanted. Virginia kind of did what they wanted in certain spots in that game. So it's like the defense just isn't there. And then, Castellanos has played pretty solid in some of those games, and they've obviously been running the ball well, but it doesn't overcome everything. And like I say, they still ran it okay. Like I say, Pittman would have helped. Obviously, Deuce Robinson going down, definitely he was been your best receiver.
Well, you only put up 10, and then they only put up 10 points in the second half.
Yeah, well, that's kind of disappointing. That's where
exactly. You expect this explosive offense that we've been hearing about, how they lead the nation, or they're in top 5 in the nation in scoring points. But like you say, that's inflated by those 2 games after the Alabama game. But just sitting there watching it, and I think teams, this was going to be a tricky game just because of Narduzzi's defense and what he does on defense. That's his calling card. But, I don't think we were expecting their offense to be able to just pretty much move the ball up and down the field as they wished. Like I said, outside of the freshman making some bad mistakes where he threw a shot play down and Earl Little got the pick, And then on the one going into in the red zone, the receiver slipped and it went straight into I forgot the kid's name, the safety's hands. So outside of that, they pretty much did whatever they wanted, especially on fourth down. And then to taunt them a little bit more, they put Deuce Span at Wildcat, quarterback, Florida State Seminole, to pick up a big fourth down. You don't think he was jacked up for that game? You know,
totally. Like I say, I think Des Reed was the huge addition. He's been out for the first couple games, and I know Cade loves that kid personally. Like, you know, he's their gadget guy, and yeah. So if you go back and look at last year's stats, he's like one of their better receivers out of the backfield. So they use him in all kind of capacity. So yeah, 155 yards receiving. Yeah, 155 receiving yards. You know, 45 on the ground, and like I say, Heinzel for the most part was pretty accurate all day. And they moved the ball up and down the field for, 476 yards of total offense. You know, yeah, they had the 2 turnovers, but
but that's where you tip your cat to Cade and said he called a really good game for the most part, and he put them in good spots to where they were able to move the ball. They weren't running the ball as effective. Heischel pretty much had 68 yards, I think it was, rushing. Right. And some of those yards were big third downs, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 12s.
He scrambled. He did a good job scrambling.
Sure. So he extended drives. But looking at it as overall as from Florida State, it's just like you can't put your finger on what the problem is. With all those offensive guys being out, but they were still able to put up 31 points. But you gotta figure it out. I just don't. I never really believed in Gus Malzahn, because it's one of those things where teams figure him out pretty fast because he runs the same stuff over and over and over again. If you put clips of all their games so far, they're taking shot plays, they're going to run a reverse, they're going to throw a little screen underneath, and go side to side for the most part. So, all the Florida State fans were in love after game 1, and this is like, trust me, he's going to get figured out. And if you guys aren't ahead of the chains or putting up points, the offense is not going to do what you think they're going to do, what they should do.
Yeah, no, like I say, the flip side, you saying, talking about they scored 10 points in the second half. Really, that last touchdown was kind of a, oh, by the way, Hail Mary type play. To the execution of the offense in the second half was piss poor, to where, you're up by a touchdown at halftime, immediately Pitt ties it back up, and then you're kind of trading a couple field goals there in the 3rd and 4th quarter. And then, ultimately Pitt, got on top. And like I say, you didn't do much of anything in the second half offensively when you needed to. And then you didn't get the stops when you needed to. So yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. Cause I mean, we said going into that game, we both felt like Florida State would win, obviously, because they were being at home, and, it was time to get off the mat and show what you got.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they lost too, so
yeah. Maybe they're just not that good.
Well, I think that's part of it.
That's what it's starting to look like. Maybe they're just not that good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're 2-10 bad. I don't think they're just going to go 3-9.
They look better. They look way better than they looked last year. Right. They're just not finishing games.
Yeah, and like I say, I think part of it too is I think Pitt, making the move at quarterback, which is surprising because Eli Holstein played really well for them last season, but you think about Pitt losing their, close. They've lost 2 really close games. Their 2 losses were, by a touchdown in both of those games, and a rivalry game at West Virginia, and then they lost to Louisville by a touchdown. So they've, they're trying to figure themselves out as well to, make themselves a run in the ACC. But I just think this is where Florida State's, you got a couple games that you should start winning. That you should beat Stanford. You're better than Stanford. You're better than Wake Forest. So these next 2 games, you really need to get back to what you were doing in the early games, in the early part of the season. Run the football. Let Castellanos do some work. Try to figure some stuff out on defense. Before you got to play that game at Clemson. Because Clemson's just kind of like everybody's kind of forgotten about them. They're kind of sleeping away back there. They got their. I mean, they're done in the national landscape for me. But can they get somehow back into this ACC race, and that'll be the interesting part for me. But, that's a game that if you're trying to say you're getting back on the map, you got to beat Clemson, and this is a down year for them. So, you beat basically East Texas A&M and Kent State, man, congratulations on the Bama win, but you got to win some conference games, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you say, what do you do now? Do they pack it in and just say the season's over? I mean, that's just the mode
Well,
of a lot of these
that's the other
kids
thing
today.
too. Yeah, that's the other thing too is I don't think he's lost the team per se yet, but you lose one of these next 2 or 3, like if you lose to Wake Forest or you lose to Stanford on the road, yeah, that thing
Yes,
could go
yeah,
completely off the rails. I mean,
hmm
we saw what happened at Penn State, like so
yeah. No one's
this
safe.
you go off the rails and you're like, oh shit, what are we doing here?
Hmm
So and but like I say, I can't put my finger on it to be honest with you because
No.
I bought into a little bit of the hype,
hmm
and yeah, they've been kind of
Yeah,
brought back to reality.
we both did because I think it's like I said, they look totally different than they looked last year. They looked explosive. They looked like they could get the ball down the field. They
Right.
look like they can make the
Well, what
simple
they
plays
when you
and
score, even when you're playing duck teams, when you score like in the 70s and
yeah,
60s, that means you're doing some efficient work on offense.
yeah,
You're making plays. You're doing some explosive stuff. You're not just winning, you know, 42-7 or something. You add
yeah.
another 2 or 3 scores on there. That's kind of impressive. So I think it was the Bama win, and then the way you shellacked those two teams. But then you
hmm
come and lay an egg on the road at Virginia that Friday night game. You turn the ball over too many times. And then they ran into a really good team in Miami. They're not on Miami's level at all. So now you kind of play a team that's kind of your caliber speed, Pitt, and you lose
Well,
at home.
I think we would say that they have better talent than Pitt.
Yeah, I would say
Not,
so too.
not like how it used to be where it was like eons better, but
Well,
they're
that's
still better. You would think that the Florida State offensive line would be able to move the smaller Pitt defensive linemen. Those guys were just flying with Lewis and Biles on the Pitt defense. They were just flying around, just
well,
wanting to make more
that's
plays.
where I think literally what it comes down to that is a little bit of coaching. Like
Yeah.
the teams are pretty evenly matched, or you might be a little bit better,
hmm
but Pitt did a better job of like out scheming you or just making
Yeah.
plays. And
hmm
so bottom line, Florida State is
their defense. I think their defensive line. I thought the defensive line would, like you say, playing the Alabama game, but then thinking about what they had to do in the Alabama game, where they had to blitz a little bit more, safeties were down closer to the line of scrimmage to stop the run. And same thing in the Miami game, safeties were a little closer to the line of scrimmage because they thought Miami was going to run the ball. They did a great job of stopping the run because they had 8-9 guys in the box. But then when it came to the passing game, it looks like their pass defense is terrible and they have
no,
no pass rush, zero,
yeah, no,
unless they literally have to blitz. If they can't get off with 4 or even just 5, they got to send 5, 6, and they got to figure it out. If they don't figure it out, like you say, don't be surprised if Florida State doesn't end the season at 6-6.
yeah. I mean, I would expect them looking at their next 6 games, like they're clearly better than 3 or 4 of these teams,
Mm-hmm.
but they Clemson and Florida, they got equal talent, so it's just going to come down to like who wants to play them.
Who
But
wants some
that
more?
exactly. So the problem with that is both of those games are on the road. You still got to go to the Swamp to close out the year. And you still got
Mm-hmm.
to go to Death Valley. So
2 tough places to go.
you better beat Stanford. You better beat Wake Forest. You better beat Virginia Tech. At NC State, who knows where they're going to be like that late in the year. That's another
Mm-hmm.
tough place to play. So you're talking, again, this thing could either you finish up 6-6 or it goes off the rails and you lose, more of those than you shouldn't. So
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. Like I say, it ain't good, but I know Mike Norvell's buyout is
ridiculous.
that tag is super heavy because he just got an extension like literally like
Yeah.
last year. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I didn't want to get into the whole extension thing yet, but we'll
yeah,
do this week
yeah,
and then kind of talk about the coaches'
yeah,
situations.
Knowles are kind of in trouble in my
And
opinion.
the next thing you should beat Stanford, but you're going on a long road trip
Well, that's the whole
out to
other wild
Stanford.
card. That's the whole other wild card about that.
But I think
10:30 kick.
Stanford is just that bad that Florida State's sea level should beat them. But with everything we've been seeing this season, don't count anything out.
Totally. So, yeah, Stanford's not a very good ball club, but
No, that's what I'm saying. Well, we thought
yeah,
that about Washington State as well, and they gave Ole Miss a
yeah,
run.
yeah. No,
So
like I say, any
you
given,
just
you better get
what
up
have
and
we been
play.
saying the last 2-3 weeks? What we've been texting Joe, you better show up and just win. You better worry about your current week. Don't worry
Yeah,
about what you did last week or what you're going to do the following week. You
yeah,
got to focus on this week and try to get the W.
yeah. That's kind of like the Gators. They had a great week last week against Texas, winning the Swamp. You're feeling good, but did you really think this team could go on the road and get a top 5 win at College Station? No, I didn't think they would. And it kind of played to the tune of where I thought it would be. I was kind of impressed the way the game started, the way they were able to move the ball.
Your text
but,
message, you were real happy, and 2 plays
happened,
later.
Yeah, exactly. Your defense gets a little exposed by a good balanced offense. Then Elko makes good adjustments. Billy doesn't, and it's rinse repeat. Game over. Gators lose. Like I say, I think that was a dumb call to go for it on your 50-yard line. With 12 minutes to go in the quarter. I mean, A&M just executed a death drive on that drive too, man. Just bled you're thinking, okay, go for it. You're going to get a couple possessions.
8 minutes.
They literally, like, the whole Dan Lanning analogy, 1,000 cuts, man. It was just
cuts. Yeah.
I mean, it was like a slow
burn. It was an 8-minute drive.
Yeah, and I mean, what sucked is, they might have could have got off the field without even a field goal attempt, and Sapp was offsides. It'd have been a 3rd and 8, so you might have been able to get off the field and get off, get a stop. Because credit to the defense, the Gator D did a pretty good job in the second half of slowing that offense down, and they didn't like just completely light it up, but again, A&M said, you know what, we're gonna shut ball down, we're gonna try to control that run game, and they did a pretty good job of that. So DJ had to make some throws, but again, Billy's play calling, and like, dude, the play call on that 3rd down and the 4th down on that,
the one where DJ threw it out of bounds.
No, this was where he threw it across the middle of the field to Vernell, and it was like behind him.
That was yeah. Where it almost got picked off.
That was the 4th down play. The 3rd down play, we just ran a damn draw.
Yeah.
And so it was like, we're going to basically, this is 2-down territory. We'll run it on 3rd down to see if we could, make this thing, 3rd and 6, I think it was. Let's make it, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, cut it in half, and then go, But again, literally, what's crazy is I was watching film breakdown too, is like the play got in so slow. The operation was poor to where literally A&M basically, they run blitzed you. They had 8 in the box, and you literally had one-on-one with Dallas Wilson on the bottom, one-on-one with the whole middle of the field. Nobody's there, so you're like, give me that all damn day. But guess what? That wasn't the call. DJ didn't even have enough time to even make a decision if he wanted to get out of that play, because he barely snapped it to hand it off to go for negative yards. So again, it's just same song, same dance. We don't even need to talk about it, because Billy's going to be fired. It's over. And it was like he was going to have to go on this magical run. Mm-hmm. He hasn't won a game. It's like he's like James Franklin. He hasn't won a big game, period. He hasn't won a big game on the road ever.
0-14.
What did we expect? Like, we got the results that I expected.
It's funny because last week everyone was calling me a Gator hater because
I did that purpose. I did that purposely.
Oh, I know. When people chimed in and said,
well, guess what? We got some reactions, so that was good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I just felt like, even if you guys played like how you played at Texas, against Texas, you played really good. I thought they looked pretty decent in the first half, where they were able to move the ball a little bit. But what was nuts to me is I felt like Marcel Reed was pretty much off the whole night.
Yeah, like he looked like shit, in my opinion.
The first couple drives he was on, and then after that he was out of rhythm. He was missing guys. He was throwing it behind Concepcion a bunch. I thought the Gator defense played pretty good for the most part, but then you still needed your offense. Here's one for you. When was the last time you guys scored in the 4th quarter?
Yeah, since South Florida.
3 points since South Florida. So you guys haven't put up any points.
It was a Eugene touchdown with 13 minutes. So he almost missed the window, because we scored 13 minutes into the 4th quarter. So it was almost the 3rd quarter.
Yeah. So
it's horrible. It's like I say, we haven't scored a freaking point in 4 ball games.
That's a problem when you get into the second half. Because it was what was the score at the half? 24-17, I think it was.
It was 21-14.
21-14.
We were down a touchdown.
Yeah. So, and then you get a big pick in the end zone by Castell to stop the Texas A&M drive. You think, okay, Florida might be able to get the offense down the field. Even if you get 3, it gets you a little bit closer, and then just nothing.
Again, Key to the game, same against Miami. What do we do on third down? Awful, putrid. 1 of 10.
Yeah,
1 first down
you're
on
you're not winning games like that.
You're not extending drives. You're putting your defense back on the field. You got to pick up first downs. You flip it over to A&M. They were 9 of 17. That's where the philosophy of our defense is bend but don't break. But we gave up some big plays. And again, I think A&M, looking at them,
A&M was one of the better teams in the country.
Definitely. After this game and actually watching a full game of them, I watched a little bit of that Notre Dame game where Elko's going to get the defense right. So if the defense plays well, you expect them to play good.
Yep.
The key is Marcel Reed. If Marcel Reed is on, they're really scary.
Yeah,
if he's off, you better hope the running game's carrying.
Well, I was just going to say that Moss is going to be out for several weeks. They said, I think it's an ankle injury, but they still have a stable of backs with Reuben Owens and Amari Daniels and EJ Smith. It's going to be a little drop off because Moss is really good. I think he's one of the better backs in the country. He is. But it's not going to be a significant drop off because that offensive line's pretty good. Reed has some good weapons on the outside, so it's going to come down to health. And I think that defense is coming around. You saw that defensive line just wreak havoc on the Florida offensive line. There were times where
we got whooped, man.
Yeah. There was times where the left and right tackles were just like, what do we do here? And I think on coaching, if that's what's going on, maybe you need to leave Hanson in a little bit more to chip, let the backs chip a little bit more, plus they couldn't run the football really effectively like Florida wants to.
That was the key. Our A&M basically said we're gonna load up to stop this run game. And again, this is where if they're gonna do that, you might have some looks, but part of that is
I did like that they were taking more shots down the field. I think they just weren't taking them at the right times.
Like I said, that's part of calling plays, man. You got to know when to dial it up, and when not to. But,
I mean, at this point, you know what? You got VB3 and Dallas Wilson. Just put it up there. Let them go because they have been making plays. They've been going up, contesting balls and whatnot.
Yeah, no, like I say,
especially if they're giving you one-on-one.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you get that look, that's what you want. You're like, but that teams are not scared to do that. So they're like, we don't respect. They're not respecting the play call. They're not, so they're not scared. And then B, Lagway hasn't shown the ability to do it except for last week. He made some good throws against Texas.
Yeah.
He made a few good throws in this game, but A&M basically said, we're going to roll with what we know and we're going to come after you and we're going to play our hand. Yeah. And, like I said, I think A&M, they got a couple tricky games on the road coming up. They basically got 3 road games now. They played they were at home the whole month of first month of the season. They literally go they go to Arkansas, to LSU, to Missouri. That's their next 3 ball games. So we'll find out a lot whether or not they're going to be in that SEC push to go to Atlanta. Can they get 1 or 2 losses to stay in that mix to get in the CFP? So like I say, A&M, I like what I see from A&M. Now the question is, can they finish or do they screw up or slip up in one of those games? Who knows?
Like I said, they were one of my favorite teams in the SEC. I think that could make the playoff. I just like their style of ball that Elko likes. Like I say, aggressive defense. We're going to rush the passer. We're going to put our corners on islands, and you got to make the play. You got to put the ball in the right spot, and they're going to run the football. And like I say, it's a quartet of running backs with Marcel Reed, who's just as dangerous. You saw that on the second play of the game, the second play on their offensive series where everyone's going with the counter and he just runs straight up the middle. And there's just like a big gaping hole that he was able to get up. And, if you're Texas A&M, you probably don't want him to run as much this early in the season. Kind of like what Ohio State did towards the latter end of last season where Will Howard started running the ball a little bit more. Reed, like I said, we all know he has the ability, but you want to save him from himself and not pile up the injuries for the rest of the year. And then once playoff time, conference play ends, playoff time ratchets is up, hey, just turn him loose and let him make plays.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I say, that was basically our games, and then there was a litany of other great ball games. Saturday, I thoroughly enjoyed that Indiana-Oregon game. Like I got to watch a lot of that one, which I was happy to be able to, because sometimes with Cruz, dude, I get busy and you've got your eye on it, but you're not. But dude, Indiana's pretty damn good, man. I hats off. Signetti's got them boys like.
Yeah,
I'm like they're playing good defense. They're playing physical defense.
Yeah, physical.
I actually love their receivers, dude.
Surratt.
I was not familiar with their work until Saturday. Like, no, Surratt and Cooper, Omar Cooper, even number 3.
Yeah,
he's a dude. And like I say, Mendoza's been getting the ball. And like I say, they impressed me going on the road to Eugene, getting that win when a lot of people thought that Oregon, was kind of that upper echelon team, which I still think Oregon's a really good ball club. But I know we talked about it, that Penn State's actions kind of like downgraded that win in Happy Valley a couple weeks ago. So it's like, okay, who's Oregon actually beaten, besides that? So again, we'll see as the season goes on, but I like what I saw from Indiana, and you got to think they're a clear-cut favorite to run it to maybe go play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, because I don't think I think we talked about their schedule. It kind of sets up where, they thought that tough road game in Happy Valley in a couple weeks. Like, now you fire Franklin, Drew Aller's out for the year. That game looks much more simple. So you just got to, hell, they got UCLA in a couple weeks now. They're the surprise hot team with New Eisel calling plays, but Indiana definitely, I'll give them hats off. They look pretty damn good.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think we both took Oregon. You may have flipped it to Indiana last minute.
No, I took Oregon, but I was kind of actually rooting for Indiana, because I was like, I wanted to see that kind of upset or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both picked Oregon because, like you said, we've liked what we've seen so far. And then Indiana making a long trip out to Eugene. Oregon had an 18-game home winning streak, and like you said, I think Mendoza is in the Heisman race. His numbers won't wow you, but guess what? He's efficient. He's moving the offense. They're putting points on the board. I thought Oregon would have been able to move the ball, running the ball with that big offensive line against a smaller Indiana defense, but they didn't run the ball. I think Oregon didn't even have 100 yards rushing.
No, 81 total yards on the ground.
And then the eye-popping thing of the game is when Indiana was coming downhill, they were violent. They were very violent when they were hitting.
Boys were hitting. And I think really and truly, I think the Mendoza interception was obviously a bad throw, pick 6.
Yeah.
But what's crazy, I felt like if that didn't happen, Indiana might have opened it up on them, because they were kind of like doing what they wanted at that point in time in the game. He made a bad throw, the guy made a hell of a play, and that kind of got the game back tight again. But it was like, man, if I feel like they were going on a drive to go kind of like take over, and luckily, for Oregon, the guy made a big play, got a pick 6, tightened the game.
It keeps you in the game, but on the scoreboard, but you really weren't in the game, because I think even Dante Moore he didn't look good, and you can't. If I say 21-34, you're thinking, oh, he had a pretty efficient game. And then you see 188 yards, a TD, and 2 interceptions, and you're like, so they were just checking the ball down, a lot of short routes.
Yeah.
But you got to be impressed with Indiana and what they've done so far this season. They went out there and they handled business. Surratt, I'm just like you. Like, I didn't really know much about him, and then they, during the broadcast, they talked about how he's a 40-game streak of catches, and he was just big and physical, and he even got a couple PIs called on the defender. There was a couple that were missed, and he was just a problem out there. The thing for this season, can they stay focused? And like you said, can they get through the rest of the year? Which with their schedule, they should be able to. Now going forward after this year, regardless of what happens in the nation, with all these jobs opening, will Sig stay in Indiana? It'd be hard for me to believe that he's going to stay in Indiana if Penn State comes calling, or a Florida comes calling, or Florida State. You go down the list of all these job openings that are better than Indiana. And he's proved he could do more with less, because I think they have no 4 stars, no 5 stars on that roster. He did bring a lot of guys from JMU with him, but it's going to be hard. You don't want to count another man's pockets, but at the same time, it's going to be hard to sit there and turn down the amount of money he's going to be offered to go to some of these other schools versus staying at Indiana.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a big questioning talking point. I've heard he wants to stay up north, so I think Florida's kind of out of the realm of possibilities. But who knows? Like I say, I definitely would have him on the list. Obviously, he's got a large buyout as well.
But there's just going to be a domino effect because
there's going to be major
just
dominoes.
throw a hypothetical out there. I don't think Freeman would leave Notre Dame to go to Penn State. But what if Freeman left Notre Dame to go to Penn State or Florida?
Yeah, Freeman's coming to Florida, baby.
Okay, either or. Yeah. And if you're Cignetti and you want to stay in that region, Notre Dame's right there.
I can definitely see that happening.
That's what I'm saying. So we don't know what this domino effect of all the 8 jobs that are currently open, and they're going to be more.
It's going to be a carousel of all that stuff.
Yeah, because I even see possible.
It's going to be wild.
Yeah, even Miami may lose their OC and Shannon Dawson.
Right.
He's been on the rumor mill the last couple of years of taking a job. It may not be a Florida job or Penn State job. He might be able to get the Oklahoma State job.
Here's a guy, going off cuff here. I've been talking to Dave about it. A guy who's not on anybody's list. If you want to go coordinator route, shit, give me Will Stein. I'll take Oregon's offensive coordinator.
I've seen he was on someone's list.
But like he doesn't know if he feels like he's ready to take on the roles of a head coach. And I don't think the Gators will go that route because they just went that route.
I think the Gators got to go experience.
So yeah, I'm just saying. But that feels like he's going to be a hot name in a couple of years. But yeah, it's it's going to be a wild scenery of what these coaches are going to do. Like again, how far are these coaches? Like if Indiana's in the playoff, that whole deal. If Notre Dame gets in the playoff, obviously the Penn State job's open. Yeah, so you wait around.
If there are currently 8 jobs open, you got to assume 30 jobs will be affected.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because even if a Will Stein takes the Florida job, how many guys does he bring from Georgia? How many guys does he bring from Alabama or from other places where he's coached? And then it just starts this huge domino. I mean, we saw it just in the state of Florida and Georgia last year where all these guys were moving to become the defensive coordinator of Georgia, or this guy moves to be the DB coach for Florida, and around and around and around. They're there for like a day or two. The next thing you know, oh, Kirby's offering me this much. I got to go to Georgia, So there's going to be a lot of movement, not just at the head coaching position, but like I say, Cignetti and then, it sounds like his guys really love him, and his staff they've been working together for like 15 plus years or wherever it was before he went to Bama and after Bama. So so we'll see. But you gotta like what Indiana has done. Like you say, they may only have 1 loss going into the playoff, possibly 2, if you throw in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, like I said, I feel we talked about them last year. They're the surprise, and it was kind of like we looked. Their schedule sucks this year still too. It does, but when you go to Oregon, that kind of puts a little feather in your cap. And plus, they've been pretty dominating in some other games. So they're not like last year where they're kind of surprised. It's kind of like Vandy right now. Vandy's like, just they've kind of put respect because they've carried it over. We've seen it in 15, 20 ball games. 2 years. You're putting together your resume where this wasn't just a one hit wonder. These guys look really good. So yeah, their schedule sucks because last year we were like, how do you put Indiana in this thing when they're going to play this schedule? And their one big game was Ohio State, and they got beat. And guess what? They got in the playoff, and they had to play against a tough Notre Dame team, and they got beat. So that was their second loss. So
sometimes you just need that experience.
Totally, and
to know what you don't have or what you lost.
Right. So this year, they were banking on, okay, you had they had the 2 tough road games going into the season before it started at Eugene and then at Happy Valley. Well, like I say, you got one of those wins, and now the other one doesn't look so imposing because of all the transitions that's happened just now in the last week with Penn State. So now if you're Indiana, just take care of your business and just who knows. Like I say, they're fun to watch. It's kind of fun to root for that underdog.
Definitely an upgrade at quarterback. O'Rourke played pretty good, but I think Mendoza's just getting the ball out fast and just being
he definitely was
efficient.
one of those. He was definitely one of those top 3 portal quarterbacks.
Well, outside of the Miami game last year, I really didn't know much about him, and then I was impressed in the Miami game how he was getting the ball out and he was making plays. It wasn't on him of why they lost. The defense just kind of faltered at the end, and then for him to make the move, and the rumors were out there, before Carson signed with Miami that Mendoza thought about going home back to South Florida to play, his last year or two. I'm not sure how many years he has left, but then, he goes up there and his little brother is his backup at Indiana. And, they're going to be a fun team to watch. And I think people should just sit back and give them a shot, because also Cignetti's the type of guy, he has that Spurrier mentality. If we could hang 70 on you, we're going to hang 70 on you.
Yeah.
He wants to put up points.
What'd you think about the quartet or trio of the big SEC games? You got Red River, you got Bama, Missouri, and then that wild Auburn, Georgia game. What was your thoughts on those ones?
The Georgia-Auburn game, they're two offensively challenged teams. Their offenses are terrible. We know Auburn's terrible. Speaking of another job that's going to open soon, Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze.
He's 14-7. Dude, he's 0. He started the last 3 seasons 0-3 in conference.
Yeah,
that's pretty bad. And he's 1-11 versus
the officiating in that game was
bad.
Awful, dude.
He was bad. The one at the goal line, I think that just changed the whole game.
And they might have got that right too. It was more so like the whole Kirby calling timeout thing. You know, the whole dude. There was a delay. There was a delay in that game for 36 minutes, dude.
Yeah, I believe it. Huh?
Of what are we doing? How are we not playing football for 36 minutes?
Yeah.
You got no accountability from these refs to where you don't know what the hell they're probably ordering pizzas up there in their booth versus the ACC guys. I mean,
that they're letting you in. Like you say, that play was huge. I think the problem was, instead of him getting the ball out, his shoulders on up was in the end zone, and you couldn't really tell if the ball broke the plane and the Georgia player just made a hell of a play of popping it out. And then what I didn't like is, normally they let the play run, but I think with the mass of bodies at the goal line, they blew the whistle even though they weren't sure, because that really was a touchdown the other way, to be honest with you. But it was so much confusion. Georgia comes out at a half 10-3. And then they were able to score. It was a bad game. This reminded me of an old SEC game back in the late 90s.
Yeah, no, it was, like I say, Auburn is definitely challenged offensively, and like I say, this Georgia team doesn't look as imposing. Like I say, they're 5-1. You know, they got out of that Tennessee shootout game.
5-1.
Yeah, it is. And is this almost showing chinks in the armor of the dam could be breaking? The problem is, who's going to break it? Is it going to be this weekend against Ole Miss? Ole Miss
hasn't looked impressive either.
Like I said, that Wazoo game, man, that was an eye opener. I don't know if they were looking ahead or whatever, but anyways, you look at the rest of Georgia's schedule too. Like, they're better than the Gators, man, and they're better than Mississippi State. Now,
they could lose the way they play. They could lose.
I agree. If the Gators want to rally and play good ball, definitely they could. I agree. The Texas game will be a tough game too, because Texas is kind of Jekyll and Hyde. They got really good players.
I think what comes down to Georgia is their defense better figure out a way to turn into the 2001 Baltimore Ravens, because that offense ain't going to do squat for them.
Yeah, I mean, the surprising, I think, again, credit to Auburn. Their defense has played really, really well this season. I give them credit. Their offense is just as bad, but when you look at Georgia's rushing, 31 carries for 79 yards, and Gunnar Stockton's your leading rusher, you got problems.
Believe you. No one would believe you.
If I told you that, you'd be like, they lost that game then because they weren't able to run the football.
Well, going into the season, there were a lot of Georgia fans and a lot of people mad when they came out and said Miami had a better offensive line than Georgia. They do. And, after a while, because remember, there was like a 3-4 year stretch where me and you were both like, dang, Georgia got another 5-star offensive lineman. They got another 5-star. Like, at one point, they had stacked so many 5-star offensive linemen to where guys start to transfer. Guys say, you know what? Why should I go there and sit there behind 3 deep? And they're starting to just say right tackle is just a sophomore and he's balling. I could go somewhere else. So I think they've taken a hit on their offensive line to where the point they have 2 freshmen on their starting on their offensive line. One got highlighted in the Bama game because he just didn't block his guy. But and I think there's just more problem. Gunnar Stockton is just not a good quarterback. He's not consistent. He can make some throws here and there, but he's just not consistent. And defensively, I think Georgia's still good, but they're just not elite like they've been the last, since Kirby's been there the last 4, 5, 6 years. But yeah, this game was just ugly and just.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I thought that Bama Missouri game was pretty good too. It was
it's a good road win.
Yeah, Bama did what they needed to do. They controlled the clock big time in that game. They had the time possession was out of this world, and then Missouri did what the Gators did. They went 1 for 11 on third down. So you just
can't do that against good teams.
You can't win that way. The turnover kind of equalized the game there when Bama felt a little comfortable when they had that turnover out of the half.
Yeah.
When Missouri got the ball and had the short field and they scored, tied it up. But for the most part, Bama kind of collected themselves and got back up on top and, took care of business.
The problem, there's so many problems with Alabama as well. If I told you that between Bernard and Williams, they only had 4 catches, and the Alabama offensive line had 2 bigger plays than Ryan Williams. Right. You got to find ways to get. I know I criticized Ryan Williams.
I know our boy Jeremy Bernard didn't do shit. Neither did Ryan Williams.
Ryan Williams did not have 1 catch.
Not a catch.
One.
And Bernard had 3 for 20. Yeah.
I know I was hard on him last week.
Horton had the big touchdown, but that was it. Really. Yeah. Their passing game wasn't great.
Yeah. I love seeing Caden Proctor in these different positions. Right. But I think at some point, if you're DeBoer, you got to say, hey, we got other issues on offense we need to figure out than putting our starting left tackle at the Wildcat quarterback or out there catching the rock and different things like that. Like I said, as a big man, I love seeing it, but we got to find, even if we got to throw a jet sweep pass or something to Ryan Williams should not have 0 catches in this in a football game.
Totally agree.
That's like watching an Ohio State game and you say Jeremiah Smith had 3 targets and no catches.
Yeah. No, for sure. I agree.
I'm gonna look at Brian Hartline like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing, Grubb?
Bama,
but they got the W.
No, here's the thing. You look at Bama's last 3 games, all 3 really good teams. They won at Georgia on the road, beat a good Vanderbilt team right now that's kind of getting a lot of pub, who are favorites, by the way, against LSU, a top 10 team. You see that? At Missouri. So you win, 2 games on the road against basically all top 15 teams. Now you turn around, you got to play Tennessee, your big rivalry game, third Saturday in October.
Dude, that's a stretch. Can you?
They've been playing good ball. I think being at home is definitely going to help, and that's going to be a hell of a game this weekend.
So I think also with not sure what the latest with Jam Miller, they're a better running team when Jam Miller's in the game.
Oh, totally, 100%.
He had a concussion. It was a hit, and he got a concussion, but. I think they're averaging 20, 30 more yards a game when Jam Miller's playing and running the football. So will he be back this week? Probably not with a concussion. But like we've been saying, you just find new ways to win, or you find ways to win. And if Bama could do that this week, not jumping ahead to this week's schedule, but you got to like their chances finishing the SEC. Ty Simpson still being efficient, and like you say, going back home to play your rival. That's what you want.
Yeah. No doubt.
And then,
how about your boy Money Mateer? Money Mateer balled out, boy.
He probably shouldn't have played. He honestly probably shouldn't have played because, you saw the reports of people down on the field saying he looked good in warm-ups and blah, blah, blah. Warm-ups and in-game are 2 totally different things. I thought the OU defense still came out and they played great. Just offensively, they couldn't do anything. You could just tell he wasn't himself. He was trying to run the ball and just tuck in and run.
Texas defense is pretty damn good, and they shut their run game down.
Yeah.
Tried to make Mateer. Mateer had to throw. He threw it 38 times, 3 kind of like detrimental interceptions, man. And I thought Arch played pretty good too. I thought Arch played pretty well.
Yeah.
I thought he hit.
And then he had a big punt return.
Yeah, that was the
game sealer right there.
Totally. But I thought Wisner kind of got going for the first time all season. And like I said, Texas, again, this is what I know they're capable of this, but again, they've been kind of inconsistent. It's been a lot of, on Arch, obviously they lost week 1 to the number 1 team in the country. And then, they got kind of like shell shocked. The Gators played their best game of the season, which kind of randomly happened. So Texas is still, they're still kind of hanging around. They're still lingering, now the question is, their schedule, they got 2 games that they should beat, and then we'll find out again how good that Vanderbilt team is, and then they still got to play Georgia, and they got A&M to close out the year. So
yeah,
with 2 losses, they can't afford another one for sure.
No,
I don't think 9-3
run the table.
I think so.
I don't see them running the table.
I don't either. I don't as well. But they're capable if that defense keeps you in games like that.
For sure.
And
for
if
sure.
if all of a sudden Arch comes together, sure. But yeah, the other SEC game was I didn't watch it down to this one, buddy. LSU South Carolina, and it looked just as bad as the Auburn Georgia game.
Yeah,
20-10 scores. Like,
yeah, I didn't watch any of it either. I just know the LSU offense is bad, and then clearly South Carolina's offense is worse.
Yeah,
and it's. Let me go back on my rant. Stop telling me guys are top 5, top 10, top 20 picks when they're not producing.
Lenore's is still the new mock draft came out today from whoever ESPN and still had him in the top 10.
Like, there's no way I would choose him as unless I'm moving him to be a Swiss Army knife and say, hey, we're going to use you at running back and as an athlete. I'm not drafting him as a quarterback. Yeah. Look what's going on with Anthony Richardson. I mean, it's just I'm tired of seeing all these athletic quarterbacks get all this pub and they can't read a defense. And their first reaction is tuck the ball and run. Like, can we get guys that are actually playing good to be a top 10 quarterback in projected drafts? I know it's not going to happen and it's not going to change. Everyone falls in love with measurables.
Yeah. Well, your Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, you always got an eye on them. They handle business against VTech. I think the other one, BYU took care of you. We knew Arizona State was in trouble when Leavitt wasn't playing, so Utah just put a number on them. I guess the other surprise, I don't know if it was a surprise. I guess it was the number. USC kind of dominated Michigan, in my opinion. And it's where are these 2 programs at? Like, because they both have big games this weekend.
But I think I want some of that.
Like who's where? And like, I don't know. How good is this USC team? Where can they go from here?
Yeah, the USC is going to have a little problems in the backfield. They may be out of there without their top 2 backs.
Good.
No, that's not good. Back to this game
playing against Notre Dame. But yeah,
I think the problem with Michigan is they're starting a true freshman at quarterback, and you can see the mistakes, but you see the potential, you see the throws, you see the big runs, but then you see the mistakes of bad reads or not getting them out on in a timely manner out of the huddle to make a play, and the different little things like that. I think Michigan is going to be fine. This is not going to be the year, but I think next year and the year after that, once they get more guys in their classes, like skill guys to come and help, Michigan's going to be fine. It's probably not going to look pretty this year.
Here's a wild thing for you. Is Sharon Moore the guy?
Part of me doesn't think so, but it's great that he's getting the opportunity. And
you're not gonna fire the guy. I'm just saying, like, it's one of those things of like you said, this is kind of a rebuild year. You're starting freshmen kind of all over the field. You probably are gonna win. You're looking at looking at the schedule.
Unless it falls off the cliff, I think he's fine.
I'm looking at 8-3, 9-3.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I expect. Unless it falls off the cliff.
Yeah, you can't lose like Michigan State, Purdue, and Northwestern. All those teams.
Exactly. Even if it's an ugly win, just say a 24-22, 24-21 win, you'll take it and just say, you know what, we're starting a freshman. But you want to see Bryce Underwood progress throughout the year. You want to see him make better plays and make better decisions. But I think offensively, they're going to be fine. Defensively, they've been good. They just, sometimes been put in bad situations.
It's funny. I went back and looked at their schedule. They do have a really nice win at Nebraska, which is, we'll just switch gears here too. Like, because I was looking at, like I said, we were talking about college football, predictions and all that stuff. And that was one of Josh Pate's, surprise teams is Nebraska in the playoff. And I think we talked about it too. Their schedule kind of set up, and then we kind of haven't talked about Nebraska at all, really. And what's surprising is that was one of Michigan's wins. And then you look at
it could have been a blowout. It really could have been a blowout.
You look at Nebraska here, and I'm like, damn, could these guys sneak into the playoff? Like, have you looked at their schedule though?
No, I haven't looked at their schedule. I'm sure the schedule, but it goes back to your Indiana debate last year. Should they be in the playoff?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. If they run the table and go 10-1, they're in.
Who's the rest of their schedule?
They're playing at Minnesota this week. Like I say, all these.
That's a tough one.
Here's the thing with Nebraska. they can win all these games and then they can get clipped. Like I say, they just won on the road at Maryland this past weekend by a field goal. So that's kind of where they're at. You know, you can win by a field goal at Maryland. So when you're playing with fire like that, you can get clipped. So Minnesota at Minnesota, then they play Northwestern. The game is going to be, they got USC at home, you know, and then they play your favorite boys right now, the Fighting Jeffrey Lannisters of UCLA, and they close out at Penn State and then at home versus Iowa. So they're all, in my opinion, they're all winnable games, but they could definitely lose one. But it would, I mean, how crazy would that be? A team we're not even talking about, you know, they kind of just been on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the wild part. They would not even have to go play in the Big Ten because Indiana and Ohio State would be undefeated if they run the table. They would be.
I mean, if you're a Nebraska fan, that's what you want.
I know. Well, here's the wild. Let's say they lose to USC and they go 10-2. They don't go to the Big Ten game. They're going to be fighting to say, "Hey, we should be in this thing." So that'll be a topic for another.
Hey, whoever they play against in the first round, they're going to throttle them.
You don't want to see Dylan Raiola in the playoffs, man.
So the other game in the Big Ten, we'll just harp on it just because they got a man fired, was Northwestern and Penn State, 22-21. I didn't watch any of the game. I know Drew Aller got hurt, and I
didn't watch any of it either. Yeah.
James Frank. And this is what I've been saying the last 3 years. You thought I was crazy. At some point, the boosters will have enough. And I knew it was coming. I just didn't know it was going to be Northwestern putting the nail in the coffin. But it gets to a point, you know, you see people getting mad and saying that he should have been fired with his record. And the record, college football records and stats are the most deceiving thing on planet Earth. Because once again, we were talking about Florida State being in the top 5 in the nation in scoring points. And because of 2 games that most teams in the top 25 would beat by the same amount or more.
Right.
And, you know, I just knew that James Franklin, he was on a short leash. And, you know, the rumor has it that Pagula, who owns the Buffalo Bills, is ponying up a lot of the money for the buyout.
Yep.
So another rumor is, don't be surprised if Joe Brady's name becomes in the mix at some point. He says he wants to stay in the pros, but money talks. And Penn State, for athletics, is not a bad place to be. Never been to Happy Valley. Don't know if it's a great place to live. But, yeah, you knew it was coming. I didn't think it was going to be this soon.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally 3 weeks ago up by 7 in overtime against Oregon
and you were the number 2 team in the country,
top 5 game in the nation, and it fell swiftly, dramatically, and part of me, I totally get it, and we've had this conversation of, do you want to be relevant and in games where you're going 10-2 every year? Yeah, sure, you can't beat Ohio State or you can't beat Michigan, but you go 10-2, the old Mark Richt effect. And where in this day and age, in all honesty, where I thought 10-2 is where you want to be, because you're going to lose games. The schedules are getting tougher. So if you go 10-2, that means you're going to be in the damn playoff 9 times out of 10. So like that's good enough. So, but then it's like, okay, we navigated our way to get here. Now can we win one of these playoff games? They obviously, did that, but I know a lot of people were talking about going back and looking at, like, okay, look at Penn State's run last year. They beat Boise State, and SMU was who they got matched up with. They didn't have to, and then they lost to Notre Dame,
without without a wide receiver catching the football.
Right.
A lot of it is optics as well.
Yeah, no, like I say, and this might be James Frank. Like, the offense has not looked good in the last several seasons. And
it hasn't.
Part of that might be because Drew Aller is really widely overrated. You got 2 really good backs, which you can't understand why you're having such problems running the football.
Well, I think they're probably, and then, the boosters could be a gift and a curse, right? Who's to say there's some big money donor saying, hey, you better play Aller and he better get as many opportunities as he can, or we're not giving you money. And it sucks to say that out loud, but that's just what it is.
Well, here's the thing. Do you think, and like I say, we don't even know, because James Franklin was going to get hired by one of these teams who are all looking for coaches. So the question is, will James Franklin be successful at his next venture? Because because I still think he's a damn good coach.
Yeah.
And like so that's a question like that. Me and Dave even had this question: Would I take him in Gainesville? And part of me is like, yes and no, because you're
It
like,
depends on how it all falls out.
well, that's what I'm saying. Here's the thing:
Lane or Franklin.
Right. I would put him on my. Here's what I was going to get to. I'd put him on my list, but if you're going to say this, you're going to say you better ask Lane, and Lane said no. Okay, you better ask Freeman. Freeman said no. You better ask Kenny Dillingham. Dillingham said he wants to stay at Arizona State.
Cignetti.
Okay, so now Cignetti, he wants to stay up north. Lanning's not coming. He's fucking
no. If you're saying you ask people,
no, well,
you have to put Dan Lanning. You have to make him say no.
Right. Well, after that is where I'm like, well, damn, give me James Franklin. If all those people say no, where do you have him on your pecking? You know what I'm saying? If all those people said no, because if you're gonna have Hugh Freeze open, he's gonna be on the market. You're gonna have Mike Norvell maybe. Billy's gone. Like the short list. Even looking at the list right now for Penn State, everybody's connected. Mark Rule. We just talked about Joe Brady. You look at that list and you're like, man, like. These names don't attract me at all. Like, yes, all the names we just named are on there. Signetti's on there for Penn State, Mark Rule. But then you start throwing out like the Matt Campbells at Iowa State. Hell no, I don't want Matt Campbell. Here's a hot name that's all of a sudden coming up the boards. Clark Lee from Vanderbilt. You know what I'm saying? So do they want to retake a Vanderbilt coach? Would I take Vanderbilt's coach? So then it comes down to like where you get down all those rungs of like those guys said no, they're going to stay at their places. So it comes down to like, okay, who would you rather have, Faro? Eli Drinkowitz or James Franklin at Florida, if you're a Gator fan?
Probably Franklin.
That's what I'm saying.
But I got a guy for you that no one's talking about. I know you like him, but I don't know if you would take him at Florida. What about Brom?
Yeah, no, Brom has become kind of a undercover hot name too. And I think he's done tremendous job, obviously, with Louisville.
He recruits Florida.
Yeah,
he's a good offensive mind. The resources are going to be better.
That's where it boils down to is okay. Yeah, like you say, like a Brom, Eli Drinkowitz, James Franklin.
And I'm not saying I heard Brom.
Yeah.
I just like Brom.
He's going to be a name for some of these like why wouldn't Brom want to go to like Auburn or something if that job came open or whatever?
Yeah.
I've heard obviously the other thing too. Me and Dave were talking about it is Drinkowitz. If Auburn came open, Eli would choose Auburn over Florida because he has ties to Auburn, apparently.
Yeah.
So like all these coaches, again, Cignetti, apparently he wants to stay up north. So I think he's out for Florida. So like you said, it would take like him going to Penn State or, and again, the whole domino effect. Rules talking about, I want to stay at Nebraska, but it's going to be really hard.
Don't believe anything any coach says.
It's going to be real hard for him to turn down that Penn State job. So the Nebraska job's open.
Don't believe any coach when they say they're not taking a job.
I saw a list. You know who was the last name on the list for Penn State? Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen.
Another guy is what's his name? The old Miami coach. That's the DC up in Cincinnati right now.
What's
his name? Al Golden. Al Golden is going to be on the list.
Yeah, the Bengals. Yeah, he's
he's a Penn State guy. He has coaching. He's had head coaching experience.
No way.
I agree with you, but he's going to be on Penn State's list. I'm not saying my list or your list.
No, I know.
Penn State will have him on the list.
Yeah, see that and here's the crazy part about going about this too, is Penn State thinks they're Ohio State, Alabama. They think they're that.
Mm-hmm.
And in all actuality, you can want to be that, but I was thinking about this the other day. Like, it's hard to win the national title, dude. Here's a prime example, Faro. We'll use your team as that example, right?
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time your boys won a title? And like, you think about the crop of like players that's come through Miami and how hard it is. And then in that era, they were dominant and they won a couple titles. You think about the run that we went on with Urban, hell, think about the run we went on with Spurrier and we only got one. You know what I'm saying? So like, it is not freaking easy. Like, I think we are in a la land world that what Saban did at Bama.
I was just going to say that. I was telling the guys at work this the other week. I said the problem is everyone thinks they're going to win, but everyone doesn't realize the Bradys, the Sabans, the Yankees, the Red Sox, teams like that have made you delusional to think that your team could go on a dynasty run, or you think you have the next Patrick Mahomes and you're going to go on this run. It's tough, especially in college football. But there's even
now
more turnover.
I was about to say the transition is like,
well, it's just
hard to get a run,
Well, just watching games now, you see the inconsistencies on the offensive lines, the defensive lines, at the quarterback play, because guys aren't used to being with each other and knowing each other schemes. That, like, just say Miami's offensive line, you only plugged in one player at center. Now what will happen after this year when CC leaves and Inez Cooper? That's gonna be, the offensive line's not going to look that great. Even when you look at quarterback play, I think the guys that are looking good this year are guys that have been starting quarterbacks for the last 2-3 years. When you look at the Mendozas of college football, the Carson Becks, you go down the list, like I say, the guys anyone would talk about at quarterback play, it's not going to be the Arches or the DJ Lagways, the guys with not a lot of experience. I mean, the kid up in Pitt is a one-off for the moment, but has he played against a good defense?
Right. Yeah, like I say, that's where you're hoping that, you catch lightning in a bottle and he can be your quarterback for. But again, is Pitt winning the national title anytime soon? So like they just want to try to compete for the ACC and maybe get in the dance or whatever.
And then who are ultimately the biggest argument I've had for years about Miami is when people would tell me Miami will never win another championship. I get that. It's all about getting the right person at your school. When the whole situation went down after Spurrier, no one thought Florida was, looking at everything, he's like, I don't know. And then Urban became the right guy, and he turned it around and won national championship. We
had to go through Ron Zook. You know what I'm saying?
And then since Urban, every guy has been not the guy there. So Penn State has to figure out who is that guy who could turn it around. When you look at UCLA, I still think UCLA is a good job. It may not be the sexiest job or a top 5 job, but if they get the right person there during the NIL era, and they could go into LA and recruit and raise NIL money and get the proper facilities, UCLA could be a decent team. Now, Oklahoma State, different story. UAB, no. The team,
all those jobs, those jobs are not going. They're not moving the needle at all. The ones that we're talking about are going to be
like it used to.
Right,
Virginia. But then that was just a guy that was there for 30 years.
Right. Yeah, Frank Beamer was there for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
And again, so what's going to materialize is, you got a top 10 job in Penn State opening up. You got a top 10 job in Florida opening up. You got 2 possible other top 10 jobs with like an Auburn or a FSU, who knows? And so if that comes out, it's like, again, it's like, are you going to wait for this guy? If you got some back channel deal, you got to be working already to where you're like, okay, we want Lane. Well, like I say, what if Lane runs all the way to the Natty, and then decides, he's made a backdoor deal with you that he's going to come to Florida, and then he goes on and wins the national title or makes a Final Four run, then says, you know what, I'm just going to stay. And then you let all those other candidates go.
But there's still a lot of questions even about Lane, in my opinion. Like, in the seasons, the big games, he doesn't win. He's been lucky at Ole Miss that his schedule's kind of broke the last several years, because you think about the games that they should have won. Last year against Kentucky, they lost. You know what I'm saying? The last 3-4 years, they've had games where you're just like, what are you doing? Kentucky, you lost last year. Year before that, you had a tough game against Arkansas. You won 27-20. Year before that, Tulsa, you beat them by 6 points. The year before that, you Kentucky and Liberty. And it's just like, is that what we want? Because he has risen the expectations at Ole Miss and brought in, I mean, the talent was pretty good when Coach O was there, but he's risen that injuries, but he's made it even better. So is Lane the guy? Will he fit the Florida culture? Will Strickland give him the ability to make the decisions that he thinks are best?
Yeah, Strickland doesn't want to hire Lane for sure, but that's where last year Strickland's like, no, but apparently Big Money Boosters are like, you don't get to say this, buddy. We're hiring
that's
the coach.
Just what it is.
Exactly. Kiss my ass. This is who we want. You go hire the guy. Yeah. So
I guess we need to hop into this week. So.
I was about to say we're an hour in.
I knew this was going to be loaded. The next couple of weeks are going to be.
That's what I'm saying. There's too many good games. And
just a lot of storylines.
Yeah, we can go quick. We talked about it earlier. FSU needs to find themselves. This is a tricky road game, but Stanford's not very good. So this is just go in there and just win the damn game, man.
It
Get
could
back
be a
on the
get
winning
right
side.
game. Sometimes you got to get away from home and go on
for
one of those long road trips, kind of like what the Jags use the London game as, like a reset game, a bonding game. Will Mike let the guys go out there and bond a little bit more? And can they run the football? Will they have their stars back? They still should win without Pittman and Squirrel White and Cam Davis.
I think they get it done for sure.
I think so too.
I don't know if you cover the 19 points, but I think the Noles get a dub.
I think for us, it's about the number. For them, they shouldn't worry about should we win by 20 plus.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, sure you want to put a number up, but just win. You need a win is what you need. A win will help heal a lot of shit in Tallahassee for sure.
Yeah. I think they win. I don't know about covering.
Friday night. This is your trickiest game, in my opinion, and I still think you're just better. So just go in, handle business, and do what you do, buddy.
You got that wrong.
You guys. Oh yeah, you're right. You're not on the road.
Man. No, sir. It's at the Asylum.
It's not it's at Hard Rock.
It's at the Asylum.
That's right. That's how much that's how much I forgot you guys are playing all your games at home until October, the whatever, when you go to SMU.
I think that's
but anyways, I think it's November 4th.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think the Canes, it's all like I said, I sent you the I'll edit it for you real quick. I think it's basically it's your team basically not beating yourselves. Carson Beck doing what he's doing, run the football, lean on the offensive line. You're playing at home, like you say, it's going to be rocking. And Louisville, I don't know much about Louisville yet because I don't think they've really been challenged as well. So I think they just lost to that Virginia team who beat Florida State. Yeah, they beat Pitt a couple weeks ago, but that was before they made the quarterback change, and then they played 3 layup games to start the year. So you're better than Louisville. So here's what it is. You're better than everybody. Go out and do what you do as the number 2 team in the country and go win the game.
Well, going into this game, this is the last team that beat us at home during our little winning streak we've had on. I think that's like 13, 14 games ago. Louisville's offensive line is pretty bad. So Bain and Mesidor should be able to get off. I think going back to us talking about Braum as a good play caller, I think he's such a great play caller that he's probably going to throw some screens and some misdirections and things like that. So how does the defense come out? How does Heatherman have the guys fired up and come out and play? Do they keep that standard going? Can we cut out the stupid penalties on defense? Offensively, let's get rid of the pre-snap penalties. Let's not stall as much. The offense is going to stall. That's every offense. But we can't go 3, 4, or 5 drives where we move the ball 10 yards and don't do anything and not get points. If we're going to stall, at least let it be in the red zone to where we get field goals. Yeah. I think we win the game. We should dominate the game, but we got to come out and run the football, be effective on third down, and like I say, just put up points. And then defensively, just hit Miller Moss and contain Isaac Brown. I think the first thing is going to be stop Isaac Brown and contain him, and then on the way to the quarterback.
Yeah, like I said, I think the Canes, again, it's kind of like rinse and repeat right now. You got your tough games out of the way.
Come off a bye week. How do we we responded because it was easy against Florida State.
Right. Yeah, you can't beat yourself. And like I say, don't go in that. This was like where the stretch was. You got past some of the early games last year where you kind of had that Friday night game against Virginia Tech, and all of a sudden the games were super close, and you won a couple wild games.
You don't want to be in that.
So here's the thing. I think this team's a little bit different. Obviously, what's way better is your defense is playing hell of a lot better than last year. So you're basically not going to get in those shootout type of games, in my opinion. And then you'll basically, what I think has been successful for Miami is they've kind of jumped on people. So
yes,
kind of jump on people.
I was waiting for you to finish your point and say that.
You jump on them, and then you kind of just let the air out of the game, and that's a great recipe for wins for sure. So
outside of the Florida State game, they haven't up until that first drive of Florida State, they hadn't trailed during the year. And then you gave up 3, and then you pretty much took command back of the game, like you said, being up 14-3, and they just suffocated the Florida State offense. And I think that's the same thing they need to do, like you were saying. Is just jump on Louisville and make them get out of their game plan.
I agree, buddy. I think
because if Miller Moss has to throw it 30, 40 times, I like our chances of getting Bain and Mesidor to the back.
Oh, yeah, totally. Billy Napier's swan song in the swamp. Hopefully he takes it all in like James Franklin did last week. No, I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna fire him if they win this game or not, because reports are win or lose, Billy's gonna get fired this week. But I feel like
he wins, he's not getting fired this week.
I feel like they're gonna fire him at the next loss.
Yeah, unless it's ugly and Florida just wins like a game-winning field goal.
Right. Yeah. What do you think? How do the Gators play this week? Do they go back to playing at home like they did against Texas? Do they have some carryover like they played early in that game on the road at A&M? Can they play a 4-quarter ball game? Mississippi State, we talked about them as kind of the surprise team. They've kind of, in my opinion, they've kind of run out of juice. That Tennessee game spent them in that overtime game where they almost stole that one, but they didn't. Where's Mississippi State's heads at? And what do you think? The Gators, here's what's crazy. Again, this is what I keep telling Joe. Gators are 2-5, and they're basically 10-point favorites, man, against a team that, we got too much street cred, and I don't like it. But, for some reason, I think the Gators win this game. And it's going to be a close game. I think they win 27-24, something like you just said. They win by a field goal or something.
I think,
but who knows? Who knows? They could also lose, too.
Yeah, this is a tricky one, because if you're Mississippi State, you're thinking, hey, man, we could get a guy fired. I don't know. That's not what they think, but you want to come in on a road game and play good. On the flip side of things is what we just said about Miami. Can you jump on Mississippi State early? Kind of get a drive like you did against Texas A&M. You're going to play against a not as good defense. Can they start off with a 8 to 12 play drive to open the game? If they get the ball first, put 7 on the board and put the pressure on Mississippi State. I think that's what they got to do. And be able to run the football. The offensive line's got to protect. Biggest thing, if they could give Lagway time to get the ball down the field. We know he's injured. We know there's issues with his body, but can they protect long enough to get those young wide receivers the ball down the field and run the ball with Jordan Ball? Who the second guy is, I guess it would be Clark, but when Ball goes off for a breather, can you continue to run the ball? I think Florida wins this one, but if you guys stumble and lost, it wouldn't surprise me. But I like the Gators winning in this one. If they come out and just handle business, because like I said, against Texas A&M, they look good. They just the offense just didn't put up points in the second half.
Well, like I say, part of it
is that trend.
Yeah, well, part of it is Elko and company made adjustments to what was working for Florida in the first half and said, we're going to try to take some of this away.
Yeah.
And we didn't adjust. We didn't make those adjustments to do anything right. And so
I think that's been Bailey's biggest downfall is he doesn't make any adjustments.
100%. So again, I feel like being back at home, you should be comfortable there. DJ plays better at home, or he's played better,
It's not a noon game. It's a nice afternoon game.
4:15 game. So you'll have decent atmosphere in the second half. Again, I think the players and even everybody around the Florida program likes Billy Napier as a person, not as a coach. So it's will these guys still kind of play for him? I don't think it's gone off the rails like we're talking about. And so I think they'll still continue to play ball just because of just who they are. And so I think they get the win. But then again, like I say, here's the thing. They say, okay, well, the next loss, Billy gets fired. And they'll say, well, what if he goes on a run like he did last year?
Right. So and you're right back where you were.
Well, here's the thing.
Last year.
Here's the thing. Do you let him keep his job if you go on a run by beating Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Florida? Like I say, again, that's where you basically finish the season 8-4, and you're like, well, we did go 8-4, but again, I still don't want the guy, man. I love him, but I was rooting for you. You don't lose games to South Florida, man. Don't lose South Florida. You got to beat that LSU team that's not very good this year.
You can't keep starting. You can't keep starting the season.
I can respect losing the Miami game and even losing on the road to A&M, because I think those are 2 top 5 teams. South Florida, yes, they might be a G5 team and they're better. You can't lose to them. Yes, LSU right now is still currently in the top 10. We know that team is just holding. They're basically plugging holes to
they're taking all water like crazy.
Trust. So again, you can't throw 5 interceptions to lose that ball game. So
no.
Yeah, with all said and done, Billy ain't going on some magical run to beat Mississippi State, Georgia, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State. We ain't doing it. So
I can't see him doing all of it. He probably,
that's what I'm saying.
Realistically, maybe 3 out of that last.
Well, again, here's the part of it too, is you don't even want him to linger around to even give you that shot.
Yeah.
So That's why the rumor has it that they'll even fire him after a win this week during the bye week. I don't know if that's going to happen because I think it's hard to fire the guy after a win. So yeah, like again, what would make it tricky is if all of a sudden you beat Mississippi State, you got your bye week, and then you upset Georgia in Jacksonville. You know what I'm saying? I almost don't want that to happen because I want it I want it to end. I want it to be over.
Well, it's just say for all the teams, we said there's 8 job openings. How does your team, if it happens, how do they play afterwards is like a weird thing to say. Like, I'm curious to see if Penn State takes on the mold of what UCLA has been doing.
Right.
Like,
that's
you know what? Our season's over, but we're about to wreck your season.
That can happen. That can totally happen.
Va Tech seemed like they were going to do that after Prey got fired the next game or two, but then, you know, it's all downhill from here for them for the most part. But, you know, you never want to see someone get fired, but if you're not producing, it's what can you do? And then it's just these stupid buyouts. That's just part, you know, I've been hearing people complain about the buyouts and all of that, but it's part of college football because just say if Billy had a 1-year deal left before the season, how many recruits are looking at him like, Coach, you may not even be there next year. Right. Coach, you may not even be there the year after. So you got these schools are kind of got their hands tied behind their back when it comes to these long extensions that they have to do, because the one James Franklin signed, well, I didn't think he was going to get fired right away, but a 10-year extension is kind of crazy, but you need that for recruiting.
Definitely. All right, we'll run through some of the big games this week.
Yes, sir.
And tell me who you like, what you're thinking. We'll start off with there's a noon game in sleepy old Nashville, Tennessee, buddy.
Hey, well, I know who's going to win at the bar, and that's going to be the LSU fans. They're going to drink that place dry. But with that being said, I like Vandy to win this football game.
Vandy is a minus 2.5-point favorite over a top 10 team. I don't think that's ever happened before. Ever.
I just don't. The LSU offense has to show me.
I like Vandy at home as well, dude. I like the way Vandy's playing, man. Like they banged with Bama. If it wasn't for those turnovers, you know, they might have, you know, won that game. But yeah, we talked about LSU. They got problems offensively. Now their defense is pretty damn good, but Vandy's playing with an edge, in my opinion. I do like the way they're playing, you know, offensively and defensively. So I don't know. I like Vandy in this game, man.
So do I.
Let's see that. We'll run through the top matchups and then we'll circle back to your favorite games. I have no idea in this one, man. 3:30 between the hedges. Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss goes to Georgia. UGA Dogs
take the under.
The Dogs are a 7.5-point favorite.
I would probably take Ole Miss and the under after watching what I watched, but I think Georgia's. I don't know.
I don't know. I have no.
I really don't know, because both teams. Like, I'm looking at Ole Miss, they're both in the top 10, and it's just, or top 12, and you're just like watching these teams play. There's no way they're top 12 teams. There's just no way. Georgia struggled to run the football last week, which was surprising. And you know that's what Kirby wants to do: run the football and play defense. Ole Miss, I watched some of that game. I went back and watched some of it, and that offense is putrid. Like, Washington State had a good game plan, but Ole Miss just had better players at the end of the day. I would take the under, and I think Georgia will squeak one out because it's at home.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of leaning to. I kind of lean in Georgia just because the game's at home. I know last year, you know, that was one of the surprise games where Ole Miss really played well in that game against Georgia last year. Carson didn't have a great game. The weather was kind of shitty. I don't know. I don't have a great feel for this game at all. But like I say, I'm with the under, obviously, too, because I don't think these teams are just going to miraculously score, 30 points. I think Georgia kind of just does what they've been doing and kind of winning a game ugly and winning a game close. That's kind of been their MO. Even in that loss to Bama, it was still a 27-24 type ball game.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of where the number will be,
I think that's what they got to do going the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, they had the shootout game with Tennessee. I don't think this game turns into that game.
No, muck it up.
Yeah, so it's gonna be an interesting game. Is all I can say. I don't know. All right, who we got? We got Alabama hosting the Vols, baby. Another top pretty semi-10 top matchup. The Bama,
Yeah, this
is
should
the
be
7.5 point
better.
favorite.
This should be better than the Ole Miss Georgia game. I think they're going to be points scored. Alabama, if you're Alabama, you got to do it. You got to find ways to get Bernard and Ryan Williams the ball. You got
Yeah.
even if you force feed them to where they both have 9 to 12 targets, you got to find a way to get them the football creatively. Ryan Grubb's got to be creative on trying to find out how to find ways to get them the ball. Jam Miller's probably out, so that means Riley's probably next man up. He has to do his pass blocking. He has to get better at it. That's the reason why Jam Miller's probably on the field. What creative way are they going to use Caden Proctor this week to try to get him in Heisman races or whatever they're doing up there? Man, this is I think this is going to be a pretty good game. Can the Tennessee offense stay explosive and put up points? I'm going to pull the upset. I think Tennessee's going to win.
Going Vols, baby.
I'm going Vols.
All right.
I'm just going different.
I feel like last year's game was pretty good, and it was back and forth. And Tennessee
last couple years, the game's been pretty good.
Yeah. I think that fun one, man, was that Jalen Hyatt year when freaking went off. That was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I still feel like Bama right now is they've been playing pretty consistent after that loss to FSU. We just talked about their last 3 games have been against tough opponents, and they've kind of found ways to win. I kind of think they're in that same mode. Where I want to see what Tennessee can do is, like you say, can they be explosive offensively against that Bama defense? And then on the flip side too, how can Bama, defensively control that explosive offense? And then, obviously getting the playmakers involved like Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. I don't know how good Tennessee's defense is. That's where that's what my biggest question mark is. You go back to the shootout game against Georgia, they gave up a lot of points.
Even last week, they were in a shootout.
A lot of points against Mississippi State, and they gave up a lot of points against Arkansas. So I'm kind of concerned with the Tennessee. They gave a lot of points against Syracuse week 1. So where is this Tennessee defense? They're kind of built for shootout type of games. Bama, I think they can be that. So the question is, it goes back to jumping. Who jumps out early? Who gets that early lead and then kind of
who can get a turnover and maybe jump up 14 points or even 10?
That's the wild part about it too. Is like I say, Ty Simpson. We've talked about him. He's taking care of the football. Only 1 interception all season. So if he can continue that trend, and then you can maybe make Aguilar make a couple mistakes. I think he's thrown 5 interceptions all year,
which he's been efficient. And then
he totally has.
Well, and then I noticed Bama has a lot of lapses on defense at times. The defense will play good, and then they'll have some lapses where a guy's wide open. And can Josh Heupel exploit that? Offensively, can Josh Heupel and the Tennessee offense exploit those opportunities they will have in that game to put up points, but not getting any penalties on an explosive play like they've been getting, the last several weeks? And can they finish drives? But I just like Tennessee's offense right now. If Bama can slow it down, like you say, cut out the explosives, they'll have a great opportunity to win. But I like Tennessee.
All right, roll Tide, baby, roll Tide. All right, the last top 25 matchup is USC going to South Bend. This is another interesting game where you're kind of trying to get a feel of these teams. You're midway through. We talked about how good is this USC team. They kind of pounded on Michigan last week. Notre Dame's got 2 losses to 2 top 5 teams by a combined 4 points. Notre Dame's playing good ball. They're at home. The line's 9.5. I think I like Notre Dame to win, but I don't know if they cover the number. But
same.
This will be an interesting game. I'm rooting for USC, so Freeman won't make the playoff.
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah, I there's USC being down 2 of their top backs. We still don't know a lot about them because they got a good win against Michigan, but it wasn't overly impressive. And I think CJ Carr is playing out of his mind and being efficient. And just when you look at his numbers, you're like, you sure this guy is a freshman?
Yeah.
And they're going to run the football with Jeremiah Love and their backup. I can't think of his name, but I like Notre Dame at home to win this one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Like I say, Notre Dame's been playing pretty good ball after that game. They shouldn't have lost to Texas A&M, really. That's
right. Yeah.
That's crazy. But all right, well, give me your other matchups that you're keying in on to watch. games to watch. There's one more top 25 game. My bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the Utes going to BYU. In my opinion,
I was actually going to say that one.
Well, I didn't add all the top 25 games. That was the last because there's
I think there's 5. Buddy. How can you forget the Holy War?
Yeah, it's the last one on the list. So that was my bad. But yeah,
that's all good.
Utah has been playing pretty good since their Texas Tech blowout, and
physical.
BYU. I just don't know how good BYU is.
With a freshman quarterback.
Games. Yeah.
I think
hasn't been daunting, but who knows?
Yeah, we know what we know what Utah. Yeah, it's a rivalry game. Last year's game, I think that one went to like 1 a.m. with a crazy ending, and BYU was able to pull it out. I think Utah, if they could get Dampier in the running game going, and the defense is going to be physical and give the freshman quarterback looks he's not used to, and just make it tough for him. I think Utah's going to win. I like Utah.
Yeah, I like the Utes as well. I just think they're playing good defensively, and again, I think Texas Tech actually might be a pretty good damn team this year. So I think
agreed.
That loss is kind of you lost to a better team. And like I say, Dampier didn't play good in that game either. So, all right, well, those are your top 25 matchups, top 10 matchups, the big matchups. Who you got your eye on as a circle game that you want to see what this team's going to do? Is it Georgia Tech at Duke? Is it Georgia Tech at Duke?
That is one of them. That's one of them for sure. Because it's
Georgia Tech is everybody's far as watch list.
And then Duke's favorite in this game.
I don't disagree. They're a 1.5 point favorite.
Yeah, you're going to a sleepy Duke to play. Noon kick. How do you get through a sleepy game? Manny, another guy up for the Penn State job, being Manny Diaz. I wouldn't hire him if I'm Penn State. You can stay right at Duke, sir, if I'm them. But Haynes King, this game comes down to Haynes King, and can he control the football and do what Georgia Tech does? They want to run the football, bleed the clock, play great defense, score when they have to, and put the pressure on you. I kind of like Georgia Tech to win this one.
Yeah, I like Tech to win. I feel like they're on a mission to win these games. They win the close game. As long as Haynes King stays healthy, I think that's
it.
They can win.
And next week we'll be talking about who they play next week. And can Haynes King? It's gonna be the rinse and repeat. Hey, how does Georgia Tech play this week? Does Haynes King stay healthy and play? And will they run the ball and play great defense and score when they need to? That's just going to be their MO the rest of the way.
They get Syracuse next week, so we'll talk about that game next week.
Yep. A couple SEC matchups. OU and South Carolina probably doesn't mean much to anyone since they're probably both out of it. I'm just ready to see if Mateer's healthy enough to play. If I'm them,
OU's 5-1. OU's 5-1. They're fine. They're in the mix.
I don't think they're gonna. Yeah, they got that stretch.
After this game, we're gonna find out how good they really are.
That's what I'm saying. And is Mateer like? Do you play him this week and let him throw 40 times a game? You're going to, 12:45 p.m. is. Yeah, it's gonna be a little weird for those OU kids going to South Carolina and that early and whatnot. But I like OU to win. I think their defense travels.
I like Boomer.
South Carolina has issues on offense, so.
What else you got, buddy? What else you got?
Oh, my bad. I thought you were going to comment.
I think South Carolina is kind of like the Gators. They stink right now.
Yeah, so Texas A&M going to Arkansas. This could be a tricky game with Bobby Petrino calling plays. Arkansas is putting up points.
Yeah, they definitely look better.
How do you go on your first road SEC game? They've been on the road to Notre Dame, but this is going to be their first road SEC game at 3:30. Does Marcel Reed? Does he play better? How will the running game look different with your bigger back and more explosive back, with Moss being out for a couple of weeks? I like Texas A&M to win, but don't be surprised if Arkansas is able to put up 30 points. It wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah, I want to see what Arkansas. They played really well against Tennessee last week, and obviously Petrino taking over for Sam Pittman. But I feel like A&M is a team that can travel. Like I think their defense and run game, with Marcel Reed, Marcel Reed would have to just play terrible. But Arkansas can definitely, this is kind of an old school Big 8 rivalry game, I think, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So, but I like A&M on the road at Pig Sooie for sure.
Yeah. Also, Texas Tech going to ASU. Will Sam Levitt play? This is a big game for the conference. I know ASU's dropped one or two, but they still could, drop the hammer down on a real big physical Texas Tech team. If ASU wants to stay in the race, they got to win this one. If Sam Levitt's not playing, they're not going to win. Texas Tech is just going to go in there and just beat up on them and blow them out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like Texas Tech in this ball game because I don't know the uncertainty at quarterback with Arizona State. But if Levitt's able to play, who knows? They could make it a ball game because I want to see Texas Tech get tested. Because they haven't really. I mean, they put a number on Kansas. We circled that game as can Kansas do anything against them? And that Big 12 is kind of just it's tricky because you're like, how good are these teams? Yeah. Arizona State was the surprise team last year. We had a lot of stock maybe on a K-State or Iowa State. They kind of fallen back. Obviously, Arizona State was the team that came out of nowhere last year, but obviously they ran into their quarterback issues. They had the upset loss at Mississippi State week 2. And Texas Tech has been kind of dominating. So I don't know how great this Texas Tech team, but they did an impressive win on one of the top teams in the league.
You win your league. You win your league. It doesn't matter what else happens. Pretty much. They're the favorite to win the league for the most part. So
yeah, like I say,
this is the biggest game. Might be the biggest game for the league.
Yeah, this game circled before the season. If you would have known Texas Tech was going to be a top 10 team, this would be the game because Arizona State obviously is the defending Big 12 champ. They're a college football playoff team from last year. You're going on the road. Definitely would love to see Arizona at a full clip in this game. But I don't know, Texas Tech, they've been doing work. So I'd probably roll with the Red Raiders, especially if Jeff Sims is that quarterback.
Right. The last two I got, Baylor, TCU, just because it's always a fun game to watch where it seems like the defenses stay at home and it turns into like a 7-on-7 track meet. That's a noon game. TCU's favored by 2.5. If Baylor wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, I expect a lot of points in this one. If the total is below 40, I would be shocked. I don't see it being below 40 or 45. Hell, I'll even say 50. I'll be surprised by it, but it should be a fun one to watch. And then the last game, no one really cares about, but it's will it happen on the plains? Will there be a dead man walking on the plains on Saturday night? Will the key card not work for Hugh Freeze?
Yeah, who's Auburn got? They're playing
Mizzou.
Oh yeah,
Mizzou at Auburn.
I picked Missouri in this game. Totally.
No, I am too, but I'm just curious to see, will Auburn see what everyone else is doing and say, hey, you know what? We need to get in this race.
Yeah. No, I definitely
he's getting fired. There's no question about it. Hugh Freeze is not going to be there next year.
Yeah, you're right. We could have Billy Napier and Hugh Freeze both fired on Sunday or Saturday night. Yeah, I'd pick Missouri because I think Missouri is actually a pretty good ball club. I think they kind of play. They just play good ball, and Perbulo's played pretty good at quarterback. The question is, their schedule has been kind of light, and they lost their big game against Bama. But I will give credit to Auburn's D. So Auburn playing at home,
their defense is good.
Auburn playing at home, it's going to be a war, I think. So
yeah. I still don't understand how Auburn can't get one's quarterback. How you can't get the ball to Singleton and Cam Coleman. Yeah. Like you got it. For me as an offensive coordinator, you got to be creative. Even if you're just saying little slip screens and stuff.
You're totally right. And here's what's wild. You go back and look, they're 3-3, right? And we're talking about firing the coach already. And they basically were in every one of these ball games. And they were all three against 11th ranked Oklahoma, 9th ranked A&M, and 10th ranked Georgia, right? So that slate, and they're playing 16th ranked Missouri this week. Like that's a gauntlet they've gone through.
But I think it's just the totality of
I know
he's been there.
The crazy part about it is, they played really well in that Oklahoma game, just couldn't get enough offense in that game. They played really well against A&M and just lost by a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then they could have went up 17-0 against Georgia, man. And it's just like, if was a fifth, all that, you could have did this, could have did that. Like, man, it's just like, that is how close college football is to where you're like, yeah, if we would have executed this play, we're talking about a totally different season. Now you're talking about this guy's going to be fired on Saturday. Man, that's crazy, man. That's wild. That's a good way to end. That's a good way to end it, dog. Because it's like,
there might be 2 or 3 firings by this week. And there's going to be more. That's the crazy. There's going to be 12 jobs open by the end of the season. If you put, I think Bill's not going to make it. Bill B may be a one and done at Carolina. We don't know what the situation is up in Tallahassee, if they could muster up enough money for that buyout, or do they want to muster up the money for the buyout? And then, like you say, in Gainesville, I mean, it's and then who else in between might lose their job? Because there might be some teams where it's just like, you know what, we just got to do it, blow it up. Let's go after one of these young hot coordinators, like a Will Stein, like a Shannon. Well, Shannon Dawson's not young, but Shannon Dawson, your boy up there in Eugene that you like. So they're trying to pluck these guys away and say, hey, give them an opportunity at a smaller school, and some of these guys may have to take them. Ryan Grubb, I wouldn't be surprised if a Ryan Grubb is up for like a UAB type job.
Right.
Like that. Now, will he take it? Will he leave Alabama and go to UAB? That's a different story. But hey, when that time comes, sometimes you just got to say, you know what, take that leap of faith and just take the job.
Yeah. No, like I say, it's going to be an interesting watch.
The rest of the season is going to be the storyline. I expect the podcast to be like this long the rest of the season, because it's just so much going on. We could do our top 12, but why? We probably should just wait till next week. And
we don't need to do that, because you're going to have, again, with all these top matchups with like Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss. Those teams might be in our mix right now, but then they're going to be out next week, after this weekend, or close to being out. So yeah, like I say, it's going to be a fun watch. It's going to be crazy, chaotic, all that good stuff. I think we realized that Miami and Ohio State look like the two best teams, and then kind of everybody after that. So it's going to be one of those things of don't beat yourself, and then can
just win, baby.
As the six games go down the list, and we get to 12. The final 6 weeks of the season, who can emerge out of there as to be one of those teams that maybe pull an upset, or bang with the Miamis and the Ohio States, or do Miami and Ohio State have a slip up somewhere. So yeah, it's going to be crazy and fun to watch. And again, that's why we love college football, man. That's why it's the best sport in the world. Screw the NFL. But yeah, appreciate everyone hanging in there for an hour and 37 minutes.
I tell you, it's going to be long, man.
Hit the bell.
Next week's going to be long. Recapping all these games.
I gotta figure out what my headline is to get some interaction on this one. As far as a Gator hater again, maybe he wants to fire Billy and the rest of the college football world. Mario Cristobal's the man. So I don't know. I got to come up with something.
I'm the Grim Reaper. I'm just coming in, just slashing coaches.
There it is. That's what it is.
Let's go, baby. Hey,
all right, people.
All I worry about is Friday night. Yeah. Let's go, Canes. Like I say, it's not the front half of the season I'd be concerned about. It's the back half of the season.
Especially going off of last year for sure. So
yeah.
All right, everybody, enjoy your college football weekend. Hopefully your team wins. Hopefully your team doesn't fire their coach. And we will.
Are you hoping that Florida doesn't fire
No,
Billy?
I'm ready to fire him today.
You ready to fire him
last year? Last year, buddy. You remember that epic rant I went on before when they gave him that extension? Their text, like, come on, man. Like, should have won it over with last year, man.
We need to find a gambling house and put money on who we think is going to be the next Gator coach.
Honestly, I don't know. Dog.
Yeah.
We'll start, put it this way. When they fire him, we'll start compiling. You compile the list. If you were a Gator fan, who would you want your top choice to be?
Like you say, all the who's who, all those guys are potentially playoff bound teams.
Yeah.
I agree. I'll think about it and try to put one together just in case we talk about it in the next 2-3 weeks. Maybe next Wednesday.
Yeah. All right, dog. Enjoy your football this weekend, fans.
Like, subscribe, share.
We will holler at you next week. All right. Roll Tide. Go Gators.